All right, here we go. Episode 9 of the Ghost Train. And we're back. I'm back. James isn't here. Don't ask me why James isn't here. He's just not here, okay? um, he said he's not in town at the moment, so this is gonna be kind of an awkward, I guess, episode in a way because we really don't have a full staff. But you know what? We don't need a lot of people on the show to make it good. For those of you who are new to the Ghost Train, this is the classiest storm chasing show you will watch on the internet. I don't need big fancy equipment or Kickstarters or anything to make this show good. I just need my big mouth, my tattoos, and some coffee, and some people to talk to stuff about, which is what we're gonna do tonight. So yeah, it's been a while since we've been on. I think our last somewhat serious episode was, oh man, I don't even know because I can't even count
The
the
Chaser Con.
yeah, I can't even count Chaser Con as like a serious episode. That was kind of a fluke, and then I mean the Storm Track episode was somewhat serious, but that was more of like showcasing a new website. So um, all right, so real quick, I'm just going to tell you, I don't know if you guys have watched the show, and I'm sure hopefully you have. And so hopefully you've known these guys. Adam Lucio, the noob, is
That's
joining us
right.
tonight.
The, not the.
The. He is the noob, okay? You can't put that any other way. So Adam's with us again tonight, and Dan Robinson, once again, cannot figure out why his laptop doesn't play Hangout, so he's on his phone. So I don't know what's going on, but well, we'll make it work. So, all right, guys. Well, here we are. It's pretty much the exact middle of March, and no chases yet. And
Nope.
not only that, but no chases even on the horizon. So it's kind of a we're in this period where everyone's losing their mind and are really itching to go out. Pretty much every chaser is starting to resort to you know doing crack and whatnot just to get themselves through the rest of the year. So yeah, March is usually the time where everyone kind of dusts off the cobwebs, kind of get those early season setups going, and just kind of start things up. But that hasn't happened this year. There's a lot of theories on why that hasn't happened this year, but we're gonna try to give our opinions on why, I guess you could say. But first, let's talk about something else. Let's before we actually jump into the future of the season. Let's kind of roll back, and we're gonna talk about what we do to keep ourselves busy during the off season. Um, while a lot of people probably just work, like most of us, some of us might actually do some other things. I, for one, what do I do in the off season? I really don't do much. I work my ass off when I can, and pretty much just kind of enjoy the weather, do some photography things here and there. I actually go out and photograph actual winter storms and stuff, so that helps me keep busy. What about you guys, Adam? What do you do during the off season to get yourself through?
Well, not a whole lot actually. My my day job is also seasonal, so in winter chasing shuts down, and so does my regular job. So winter's usually a season of penny pinching for me, so I don't go out a whole lot. As far as weather goes, I if it's an interesting winter, I spend a lot of time tracking winter weather, doing things like that, especially with the new website that my chase partner and I launched, IllinoisStormChasers.com, doing a lot of blogging, a lot of tracking the weather, forecasting, and if we do get a good winter storm, I'll go out and try to shoot some ENG video and things like that. But overall, I'm kind of like a bear. I just hibernate during the winter, and if you get that first sunny day, I crawl out of my house, and it's kind of like, the sunlight's all bright. So yeah, winter's kind of a downtime for me. I don't do a whole lot as far as extracurricular activities. I enjoy going to the casinos and things like that, and I do a lot of catching up with friends and family over the winter too. Because once spring rolls around, chasing comes back in, and so does work, and my time is very limited. So yeah, not a whole lot in the winter for me. Spend a lot of time getting ready for the upcoming season too. Trying to advance my forecast knowledge, do any work I need to on the vehicle, redo websites and videos. All the stuff that becomes a mess during the season. I don't have
Mhm.
time to take care of. I use the winter time to catch up on all that stuff, organizing my video backups, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did this year. I actually went back all the way to my early career in 2008, processed pictures that I had, and kind of posted them on my website to finally get everything on my website because that's something that's been long overdue. And yeah, you're right. You just don't have the time to do it during the season because you're busy worrying about setups and whatnot. So yeah, that's one thing I think I'm probably going to do at the end of this year is I'm going to kind of save all the pictures and video editing and all that stuff for the off season because that's an easy way to kind of blow through time, and that really helps with the whole SDS, which for you noobs that don't know what SDS is, that is supercell deprivation syndrome, which is basically what happens when storm chasers don't have anything to chase. We kind of start scratching their skin and kind of doing that whole
Start
thing.
twitching.
So,
That's why everyone's griping and yelling at each other lately. We're all a little
yeah,
spazzed out at the moment.
yeah, we all pretty much turn into like crackheads and like yell at each other and start convulsing in the corner and stuff like that. So that's why chasing is good for us. Dan, what do you do during the off season?
I have a pretty boring life in the winter, like everybody else. I just work. This past week or this past year, I've been working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. I do my normal day job, which is website design for a company in West Virginia, and then I have another one of my web customers that's a separate client, and I've been making trips back and forth to West Virginia to do on-site work for them. So that's basically all I've been doing this winter is going back and forth and sitting in front of a computer. So not very healthy, but it pays the bills.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, speaking of work, so this is the time of year where usually I am kind of busy, especially March is my busiest month of the year. Um, put it into perspective. In the last 4 weeks, my paychecks have totaled to 254 hours. That's about 127 hours per pay half per 2 weeks. The way that works is I get paid off commission. So basically 127 hours worth of work every 2 weeks. So that's 63 hours a week. So yeah, I'm pretty busy this time of year too.
That's how it goes for me once my job starts up. 60 hours a week. Anything under that, and it's like, what the hell, you lazy bum? Get out there and work. I already did 60 hours. But, that's just the way it goes.
Yep, that's kind of what sucks is it just works so much.
I do the winter weather stuff when I can. I don't enjoy winter weather as much as I used to. It's a lot nicer when you know you're going to get paid for doing it, and it's harder to do that these days. But I still maintain the Icy Road Safety website. I don't know if you guys know that about me. That's my secondary project that I work on in the winter, and I kind of stumbled on that issue, and I've been trying to keep up with that thing, and I try to go on a couple of trips a year to go down south when they have their ice because it tends to be more chaotic than up here. And but I do that in the winter. Other than that, I'm lead a pretty boring life until the first chase setup.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Marcus.
I was gonna say, yeah, people in the South, when it comes to ice, it's just like total ignorant people out there. They just don't know how to drive in it. So
Even
yeah,
half an
I
inch
know
of
how that is.
snow, from what I've seen. Half an inch of snow, and y'all are bumper carsing down there. But,
Well, the thing is, they don't have any salt trucks down there. They've got
mhm.
a couple of sand trucks that they're just way inadequate. Once they get a big storm, they're just completely overwhelmed, and it's just hopeless. And they just deal with it. I mean, usually once if it snows down there, it'll be cold for a day, and then the next day it'll be 60 degrees, and then everything will melt. So they just deal with it until things melt. But in the meantime, it's pretty chaotic.
Yeah, we had a decent sized snowstorm here in Amarillo, which was a foot of snow, and I was really surprised because that was the first big snow of the season, and we actually shut down work the day before because we knew it was going to be that bad. But I guess the ground temperatures were really, really warm, so the roads actually weren't too bad. But no wrecks, nobody. I didn't have to pull anyone out of the ditches. I spent all day driving around, and no one was in the ditch, and I was totally surprised. And then we had another snowstorm last month, and I think it snowed like 4 inches of snow, 4 or 5 inches. I swear to God, the roads were iced over for days because TxDOT wasn't out there doing their plowing and whatnot. And you're right, we don't have salt trucks, we have sand trucks, and all they do is sand they'll sand the bridges and then they'll sand intersections, and that's it.
Yep.
So,
The
yeah,
sand really, it's still icy, slick. It's just the sand gives you a little bit of traction. You still have to slow way down coming up on a light, going around a
yeah.
curve.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. And luckily, most people around here know about it. Because we usually get one big snowstorm a year. So, well, hopefully that sticks up. But hopefully, I don't have to worry about snow for the rest of the year. I don't know. There's a cold front I saw coming down the line, and I'm just like, oh God, please no.
Yeah, if you
It's
guys
gonna
are
be.
getting snow this late in the year, there's problems.
Yeah, and it's funny because tomorrow it's supposed to be about 80 degrees for a high down here. So
Yeah,
talk
we may
about.
have a run at it too. We're looking at mid 70s, which for up here that's about 30 degrees above normal, even for up here. So yeah, we got a warm day ahead of us tomorrow.
And y'all are, and Adam, I guess y'all are pretty much melting all the snowpacks up there, right?
Yeah, it's just about gone. The only thing that's left are just those residual molehills in mall parking lots and whatnot. So for the most part, it's gone up here. We've eradicated our snowpack.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, yeah. Not much going on in the off season. I think everyone else has the same thing. I think the off season was a good time to do the storm track switch. I think I know Dan was probably busy with that for the most part. I've been spending a lot of time on that website as well, so they timed that pretty well. I guess it could have happened a little sooner, but whatever. I think it worked
Yeah,
out pretty well.
January is probably the perfect month. You don't want to try to redoing a Storm Chaser website and how to chase these. That would have just been chaotic. So I definitely think that was the perfect time to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Dan, you've been kind of hard at work still on the website.
Yeah, yeah. We actually got a flurry of who's who entries today, so I'll be working on that for the next 3 or 4 days. Looks like we'll just
Yeah.
profile in, send it in. We'll get you
Yeah,
listed.
I'll eventually get to it. Haven't got to it yet. So, all right, guys. All right. So, this is the time of year, I guess, where, like I said, all the chasers are kind of sitting and waiting. And there's talk of a few things that are affecting our season so far. I don't think I've ever had a off season like this year where we have so much discussion about these oscillations. Um, I know about them. I know they exist, and I know they're out there. I know, obviously the common ones are El Nino and La Nina. And of course, they just officially declared us in a weak El Nino. And supposedly there's a difference between a Central Pacific El Nino and a classic. I don't know. This is like this is too much to add to what's already up here. I used to just stick with El Nino, La Nina, and the way it worked out in my head was La Nina didn't mean less tornadoes. It just meant less tornadoes, for this area. I mean, I've talked to several people here at the Weather Service, and they said, yeah, this area seems to be affected more with the El Nino, La Nina just because of, I guess, I don't know, our location. Usually El Nino means we have more storms in down here in the panhandles, and La Nina means we have less. And El Nino years were like '07 and 2011, or I mean 2010, we had above average, and then La Nina was like 2011, 2012. Well, I guess 2011 we had like nothing, but I don't know. So let's kind of talk about these oscillations because and not so much. Let's not talk about the factual part of it. Let's talk about the opinion of the oscillations because I think all of us kind of have our own opinions about it. And yeah, let's hear it. Adam, what you told me before the show was that you used to live and die by the Northern Atlantic Oscillation, and kind of explain to us about that and why was that?
Yeah, well, when I first heard of these oscillations, like anybody, I was like, well, what the heck? What does this have to do with anything? So, I started looking into it, and somebody told me, oh yeah, when North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO for short, when it's in a positive phase, we tend to have favorable West Coast troughing. So I started following that, and back around like 2010, 2011, it seemed to hit the nail on the head. Every time that thing went positive, I was chasing. And I tried to look for it before the show. I couldn't find it. I wrote a blog where I displayed like a year's worth of NAO charts, and every time there was a peak in that positive phase, it was a significant tornado outbreak, and I had them all highlighted. Like that was my secret chase forecast mechanism. Like, ooh, I'm just going to watch the NAO, and if I see it going positive, I know I'm going to be chasing. But like anything, over time, that has proven to be not true. The NAO has been positive for the better part of 3 months. I haven't chased once. We're off to the slowest chase season, and I think now it's 12 years or something. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to these oscillations everybody's been talking about lately, the PNA, NAO, AO, ENSO, all this, there are some trends that you might be able to see in certain years, but I don't put as much stock into that as a lot of people seem to be lately. As far as El Nino and La Nina goes, the National Weather Service in Chicago did a great write-up of those once, and they compared La Nina years and El Nino years to the tornado counts, at least in the Midwest and Northern Illinois specifically. And it turns out in those cases, the difference was almost split down the middle. I forget the exact results, but it was something like El Nino years are only more active 55% of the time, and La Nina years are below average 40% of the time. So in those cases, it was almost split down the middle, not enough to sort of sway me or convince me one way that you're going to get a La Nina, you're going to have a strong year, or whatever. So I don't put as much stock into those as I once did, especially with the NAO, because like I said, it's been positive the better part of 3 months. And another one I hear a lot is the PNA. And supposedly when that thing is negative, we're chasing. When that thing is positive, we're not chasing. The positive phase promotes West Coast ridging, which we've seen, and it's been largely positive for the better part of 3 months. So in that case, you could say, yes, we're in a positive PNA, and we've had a West Coast ridge, East Coast trough that we can't seem to get rid of. But the PNA went negative, I believe, in the middle part of February, all the way up to about last week. So where was the switch? We didn't have any West Coast, by what these people are saying, you would think when the PNA goes negative, okay, suddenly, obviously it's more complicated than that because there's 5 other things that have to all come into play here. But, like I said, if anything, it's just another thing. You can't go by just one of these indices. It's a combination of that and everything else that we look at. So that's kind of my whole view, and I don't fully understand how the relationships work between all 10 of them. There's so many. I don't fully understand the relationships between all of them. I just know that looking at one of those is as useful as looking at the 798-hour CFS that just got added to COD.
Golly, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So, okay, so here's my bottom line. I mean, you made a great point. I mean, you can't put too much stock into these oscillations, and I think the reason being is because tornadoes don't care what's oscillating. They don't care what the hell the Pacific's doing. If the ingredients are there, it's going to happen. And the way I see it is maybe there's some truth to some of these oscillations that they provide the tools for the atmosphere to create severe weather, but they're definitely not the end-all be-all of the season. I mean, you could have horrible years. Last year was a horrible year overall. I mean, nothing really happened in the South Plains at all. I mean, there was a few setups here and there, some weak ash tornadoes, whatever. But last year was all pretty much boiled down to 3 days in June, and that was it. And I mean, I don't even know what the oscillations were doing last year, but I know that we were like in an enso neutral phase, which people are thinking that that's a big issue, but I'm pretty sure we were like enzo neutral. I think you guys remember 2012. I mean, we had a lot of tornadoes in 2012 compared to last year, and it was enzo neutral. But the way I see it is, you guys, you cannot put too much stock into these oscillations. They're not they're not there to tell you exactly how the season is going to turn out to be. You could have these weak troughs and little weak pinched turds, as Adam calls them, kind of drifting through the plains, and you might have this big trough in the East Coast, but if you have enough energy kind of swinging on the south end of it, you might have a little setup in Central Texas. You might have a little weak setup in like southern Kansas, where one storm goes on to produce a couple tornadoes, and it doesn't really. I mean, there's still going to be like hundreds of tornadoes this year, and like we always say every time we talk about this, there's going to be tornadoes. You just have to be there for them.
Exactly. And I think with a lot of what people believe with the El Nino is you get those warmer sea surface temps, and then it's going to give more energy to the subtropical jet, so you have that more active southern stream branch of the jet stream there. But it doesn't mean nothing if you still got an East Coast troughing pattern. That energy is just going to get sucked into an East Coast trough and form another nor'easter. That's why Boston's had so much snow this year. So all that energy doesn't mean nothing if the overall synoptic pattern is garbage. So it's more to it than that. And like I said, there are some truths and there are some patterns that you can relate to. But again, like anything, NAO's been positive. Where are we chasing? PNA went. What is it? Positive later half of February, first half of March. It was still cold. It's only now warming up when it's back negative. So, I don't know.
All right, Dan. What is your opinion on all these oscillations?
My opinion, anything past 10 days is fun to talk about, but pretty useless in all practicality. And I've kind of gotten away from even reading too much about the thoughts on long-range forecasting, because in the past I just realized it hasn't really played out to be anything useful. Like you guys say, you can look at the 384-hour GFS and see what it's rolling the dice and showing us, and that's about as useful as you're going to get. So, which isn't very useful. So, yeah, I look at the 384-hour GFS like everybody does, but I realize that it doesn't mean anything until you start seeing the same thing 7 to 10 days out on all the models, run after run after run. Then I'll start taking notice.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about this when you're talking. I guess I understand if you do not live in the plains, where you kind of put stock into these oscillations, because it's going to tell you that it's going to be an above average this time of the year. It's going to be this time of year, and you got to have a month's leeway for vacation time. That I get, but like I said, you just can't put your whole season on it. You can't put your money on it all the time. Now, if we're like in a really, really strong El Nino or a really strong La Nina, then maybe there's definitely some patterns you're going to look for and actually probably expect to have tornadoes in this area versus this area. Although 2011 was a strong La Nina, and there was South Plains outbreaks, there was big violent tornadoes pretty much all over the plains. I think the only area with the exception was around here in the high plains. But everywhere else, Oklahoma had the big outbreak in May 24th, and there was a Joplin tornado. There was April 27th. There was a ton of big outbreaks in 2011 in La Nina. But that you just can't take it too far. But I get it though. I mean, for us here in the Adam lives up there in Chicago. Dan's in St. Louis. I'm in Amarillo. We're basically pretty much in Tornado Alley for the most part. So it's a lot easier for us to say, well, what's going to happen? Whatever happens, happens. But if you live way up on the Pacific Northwest, if you live way up in the East Coast, or you live even overseas, yeah, I can see why you would put stock into the oscillations. But I guess what we're just trying to say is it's not going to dictate exactly how the season's going to go. I mean, we've said it many times also in previous episodes. It takes just one day to make your entire year, and that can definitely happen at any time, anywhere. So, but take it as you will. Don't discount the oscillations. If that's your go-to, then by all means, you forecast the way you want to forecast. I forecast the way I want to forecast. You know, I'm sure you two guys can agree. You know, forecasting for me in Amarillo is a lot different than forecasting for you guys in the Midwest because you guys look for different things than I do. You know, we get tornadoes out here in upper 40 dew points, so I don't have to look for the mid 60 dew points to get tornadoes out here. You know, you guys are kind of different. You guys need a little more juice in the air to get things happen, but I don't look for warm fronts over here because warm fronts don't happen very much over here. That's kind of you guys over there kind of deal with the warm fronts. So.
Yeah, it's a little different for everybody. You know, Southwest 850s are more than adequate to get it done here. You get Southwest 850s down in Oklahoma, and everyone's screaming, "Oh, it's a bust!" But Southwest 850s don't matter up here, so definitely it's different. And I mean, as far as the oscillations go, I wouldn't mind learning more about them. You know, if people have good articles and case studies and things that they could show me to prove, oh yeah, this is why this is more is as valuable as they claim it to be. Absolutely, I'd be willing to learn that, and I still am. You know, I read up on these every now and then. So, like I said, I don't know everything about them because, as far as I'm concerned, they're not as important. They're not any more important than anything else from my personal experience. I've been going both ways for the last 4 or 5 years now, and I haven't been able to pick out any oscillation pattern that has benefited me in terms of when I am and when I am not chasing. So I haven't been able to decipher that for myself. You can sit there and tell me that, oh, this means this and this means that, but if it doesn't affect how I'm chasing, to me it's useless. So that's kind of my view on that.
Hey, just real quick, did you guys hear Adam say he goes both ways?
You bastards.
I think that's like at the 26.5 minute mark for everyone that wants to watch that again.
Yeah, I'm not that trendy and modern. I only go one way.
Oh man! All right. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. You made a lot of good points there, Adam. Dan, do you have anything to add to Adam?
He pretty much covered it. I mean, like you said, I haven't found the long range forecasting past 10 days to be anything useful in terms of planning. I mean, I used to live in West Virginia, where getting to the plains it wasn't exceptionally difficult, but it was a 2-day trip, so I had to plan ahead a little bit more. But I mean, even then, anything past 7 to 10 days was just throwing the dice in the air, or flipping a coin. There's really not any practical use that I could find in going beyond 10 days. I mean, the best you can do is when everything starts showing a trough at 7 days, and you start saying, okay, it might be time to pack up here in a few days. And when it gets within the NAM range, and then it still shows the trough, then you know you're going to be chasing. That's basically how I still operate almost.
Yeah, I mean, if you got that far to drive, then yeah, I could see why you have to put faith into some of the longer range models. But if you have the opportunity to just kind of take off whenever you can or whenever you need to, then that makes chasing a whole lot easier. But yeah, let's talk about real quick. I guess after okay, so we got our oscillations out of the way. Let's talk about some of these models that we look for. There's a couple of new models that popped up on College of DuPage. One of them that's getting a lot of attention is the CFS, which is the climate forecasting system, and I'm going to screen share this with you guys because I've been kind of looking through it. But so yeah, you got College of DuPage has a CFS version 2, which is the climate forecasting system, and as you can see, as Adam said, this thing goes out to hours 798. Now, your products are pretty limited. You got H5s, H85 temps, surface base cape, and supercell composite, which those bottom two, I don't even know why they even included that in this stupid thing. So, but yeah, you could I know, right? why add the surface-based tape and so composite this far out? Like, but yeah, I
It's a
mean,
marketing
it's
strategy.
yeah. Now, okay, so real quick, talking about this model. If there's any sort of truth to this, which I'm not exactly sure if they maybe include oscillation patterns into this model, which I guess maybe that's possible. But I'm gonna go to North America here. Look at this. You still get this big Hudson Bay trough out here. And it pisses me off that I just kept seeing it over and over. It does not really move. I mean, it kind of moves around a little bit, but all the way through the entire period of this CFS, you can see it's still sitting there, and that's bad news for pretty much chase season.
The funny thing is, I don't disagree with that right now. If you ask me what I think the pattern would be, that's it. I don't, as crazy as it sounds, I don't disagree with what it's showing there.
And exactly.
What is 788 or 798 hours? What is that?
That is April 17th, 18Z.
That's crazy.
So we're talking. It's a full month, basically. It's a little over a month. But of course, what's funny is that if you look over the Central Plains, you get these little weak troughs that kind of blow through and have some sort of energy. There's a couple of closed lows that I think show up in here. Like there's one off the coast of California that kind of just decides, I'm not going to do it. And there's some in the Gulf of Alaska that's like, I'm not going to do it. So, are you? Let me ask you this: are you guys concerned that the CFS is showing that like all the way through mid-April? I mean, does that concern you guys at all? Do you put any faith into that stupid model? I say it's stupid because, like, come on.
I wouldn't be surprised in 2 weeks that we have a monster Western trough where I'm going to be out chasing. That's the way these things go. I mean, these things will show these horrible patterns, and then everybody will be like, "Oh, the season's over. It's going to be horrible," and then boom, 10 days you have troughs start showing up, and then it happens. I've seen that happen almost. I don't want to say every season, but at some point,
more often than not.
Yeah, at some point it's going to switch, and I don't think I've ever seen an eastern trough persist for a month. Have you guys?
Yeah, the last three.
During chase season, anyway.
Yeah. No, you're right, and I'm not necessarily concerned with the fact that it shows that because as we all know, you get beyond 10 days and the models are just throwing a dart at the board basically. But given what we've seen so far, I don't see anything that's going to make this pattern break down. So to me, what it's showing, it makes sense. It's what we've seen, and those blocking patterns up there over Greenland with that warm dome of air that just keeps sitting there, that doesn't want to budge. So I can understand why that model is still showing that. And the CFS is not a new model. This model's been around for a long time. COD just decided to pick it up, and now it's suddenly more accessible and easier to read for everybody. So this model's been around for a while. But yeah, I'm not necessarily concerned in the sense that it's the truth, because as Dan mentioned, this time of the year the pattern changes so fast that you can get a switch towards the West Coast trough for a couple of days. But at the same time, if you asked me what the pattern going forward is going to be for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think it's exactly that. I don't see this breaking down anytime soon.
Well, and I've said it quite a few times on the forum. Most of it was jokingly, but at the same time, I have some seriousness, and I'm not going to worry about anything until probably mid-April. If there's something that happens between now and then great, I'll be all over it. But I'm not going to panic about the season. I don't even want to panic, but I'm not going to worry about the season or the future of the season until probably about mid-April. That's about the time when, mid-April. That's about the time where if you're not seeing anything on the horizon, then you could probably expect probably not until maybe early to mid-May is going to even do anything. And that's not. I mean, no, that's not always the case, but that's just my way of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anybody's panicking. I'm certainly not panicking. I think we're all just itching to get out there. It's not, our gripes aren't worrying that the whole season's going to be dead. It's just that it's been dead so far, and there's nothing on the foreseeable future. So I think it's more the line that we're all just bored and itching and ready to go. Like you said, if it's still looking like this in mid-April, looking like that into mid-May, okay, now we might start getting a little bit nervous. And I'm the type where I don't necessarily think a troughing pattern is always good this time of year when you still get the insano shear this early in the year. So troughing patterns, the systems tend to be progressive. You get those lows spinning up and moving out every 2 to 3 days. They're nothing but Gulf sweepers. So you get a bunch of low pressure systems coming through that has no quality moisture with them. So I would not like to see a persistent troughing pattern in the West either. What I would like to see is things go zonal for a little bit, not split flow, but no more zonal, where we get maybe a primer week where things can kind of cook, get the moisture up there hanging out around the Gulf, maybe getting into central Texas there, and then when a trough finally does come through, it can pull that moisture up more easily, and then we can actually have a quality setup. So I would like to see things go a little bit zonal, kind of give us a primer, sort of a cooker week before troughing pattern. I would not like to see it flip back and forth that fast, because there's been so much damage done that getting a trough in at this point is just a waste. So I'd rather not use up a good troughing pattern this early in the year. I'd rather that wait till we get some of the insano shear out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more. I mean, keep it zonal, kind of put everything under a high pressure cooker, and then pull something in.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully that happens. There is a cold front that's going to sweep through this coming week, and it'll probably draw all the moisture back down towards the Gulf. I didn't really see signs of it sweeping through the Gulf, just kind of getting to the Gulf. So hopefully that's the case, and then hopefully we can prime up the plains with some moisture, and then get one of those, little turd of a lows that do kind of sweep the Southwest. Sometimes those do some good things. So,
yeah, it's certainly good for giving you guys the rain you need. Absolutely. So, long term, this may be beneficial.
Yeah, it's been a while since we actually had moisture in this area, and I'm pretty sure Wednesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, looking like some pretty good rain in this area. So that's gonna always be good.
But that's what it's going to take, though, to get all that moisture replenished. So maybe this is the transition year, and things will return to normal next year. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but all I know is you can't fix the problem that quickly. So maybe this is the year we need to sort of. Seems like ever since 2009, things have just been all wonky. So maybe this could be the year that sets everything to what normal should be.
And I know. Now that you mentioned that, I just remember this, and I wish Jeff was on the show today because he kind of talked about this. But he mentioned something in the 2015 thread. There's a difference between the El Nino, the traditional classic El Nino, versus the Central Pacific warming, which I guess we're in the Central Pacific warming, which isn't that great. But he said that the CPW is a frequency of 7 to 10 years, and which that would possibly explain some of the lower years recently. And 2013, 2014 could have been the central part of that, and maybe we're going to start coming back up. I don't know, but that's another thing. And I'm sure someone's going to correct me on the forum or something, but I remember hearing a long time ago, like when I first started chasing, someone was telling me about how the sun kind of pulses in energy every 11 years. And when you get to that peak energy, you kind of have more solar radiation coming to the Earth, causing some extra warming, and then it'll kind of subside a little bit and kind of create some cooler years. And I don't know if that's actually true or not, but I mean,
yeah, I've read stuff like that too.
Yeah, so it's stuff that I could see possible, and if it does actually have any sort of stock in the air, then maybe that's what's going on. Who knows? I certainly don't claim to know everything about chasing. I just know everything about being cool and classy.
Sure you do.
So oscillations are out of the way. All right. So what are you guys looking for in the models from now until, I guess, till chase season starts? What do you Adam? You just kind of said you want to see some zonal flow. You want to see You don't want to see any more of these big Arctic blasts, I'm sure, to sweep all that moisture out. You want to see the plains kind of pressure cook. And, that's very agreeable. I think a lot of people would want to see that. Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, being in the Midwest, and Adam knows this, I'm sure, is you don't need a big trough to see tornadoes in the Midwest. And so when the planes aren't going to be doing anything, which it doesn't appear like they're going to be any major chase opportunities in the planes, I start looking at these little subtle Midwest setups that we sometimes will get. In the Midwest, if you have 50-degree dew points and a surface low, it's a chase day. So I, just keep an eye out for one of those things and see what happens.
Kind of play on the daily, kind of play it by ear, huh?
Yeah, those you can't really see coming more than a day out. In fact, most of the tornadoes I've seen here in the Midwest, I didn't know that I was going to be chasing until the morning of, and I woke up and I looked at the satellite. Looks like there's a boundary there that might do something. So you just got to pay attention.
So see, it doesn't matter what the oscillations are doing. You can get chase days no matter what. It just depends on if the ingredients are there. So
absolutely.
I think that's all we're trying to say is it doesn't matter what the overall pattern's doing. You get these little mesoscale accidents all the time, and no one's prepared for it because the models don't really pick up on them.
Especially later in the year when setups tend to be more driven by CAPE and subtle boundaries, as opposed to what we typically see early in the year. The setups are often more driven by shear and large troughs and things like that. But as you move towards the end of the season, late May into June, all in those situations, all it takes is typically a stationary front with just a little subtle kink in the flow, and you got so much CAPE floating around. Your moisture's already in place. That's all it takes. So you're kind of watching for different things at different times of the year. This time of the year, I definitely don't like anything I see in the models from here to as far out as they go. Nothing but East Coast trough, and split flow does nothing either. There's been a couple weak little troughs coming, and I see a trough piece of energy coming through the plains. Well, yeah, it's a split flow. You still got your main branch to the north. That never works out well because you're going to get a surface flow crashing out of Canada, meeting up with it, and I've never had a setup play out well when you got a southeastward moving surface flow. It just never seems to work out for me when I'm chasing as a setup in a hole. So, yeah, I definitely don't like to see any of that either. So I don't like the whole split flow, southern branch, northern branch thing. The only thing those are good for are phasing in the middle of the country and bombing out a cyclone there, which sometimes can be beneficial for the Midwest and East Coast. But for traditional plains chasing, I'm not a big fan of the whole split flow regime.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it's a pretty boring setup in terms of the overall pattern, and a lot of the times those split flows, you get those big troughs on the East Coast. That's usually what helps bring down that cold air. So I definitely don't like seeing it. But I mean, I don't know what else to do. I guess just kind of sit and wait and hope it doesn't get too cold between now and then, because I really enjoy wearing shorts right now. So.
Oh, I know. We're gonna go from 75 on Monday to 40 on Tuesday. That's gonna be it. How quickly you get spoiled by warm weather. We're in for a shock.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. So, all right. Well, yeah, that's kind of what's going on, and that's what we're looking for. Just let's get rid of the split flow, but let's also keep it zonal for a little bit, and then kind of prime the planes, and then hopefully that big push in either late March or early April will be just big bombing trough coming out of the west and just over this big nice 60-degree air mass over Kansas or whatever.
Did you guys see Bastardi's forecast yesterday? I know that's generating a lot of buzz lately.
I have not. Please explain.
Dan, have you seen it?
That's the first I've heard.
Okay, it was pretty bold for him. He's thinking second half of April, early May is going to go bonkers, and he did a lot of comparisons to 2011. He didn't flat out say it's going to be 2011, but he says he thinks the pattern he sees coming is very reminiscent of 2011. He thinks that big, cool cool air that's been parked over the northeast part of the country is going to start to slide west and park itself over there. And we'll be in persistent troughing in about a month from now. So that was very interesting coming from him. He's typically not so gung-ho when it comes to severe weather. He's kind of a cold weather lover. So I was surprised to see him put out such a bold tornado forecast. And he specifically mentioned active tornado patterns. He called it the Furious 45, as in what I took it as 45 days of chaos once we move into middle April. So I thought that was very interesting to go ahead and watch his study. If anyone has time, go check that out. It's on his website, Weatherbell. He posts a summary every week. And he backs it up with a lot of stuff. That's what I like. Whether it's wrong or right, he backs it up with a lot of observations and things that he's seen in his personal experience. And that's really all forecasting is for everybody. It's their experience, what they've seen, what they've experienced, and what they've observed. So just it's some interesting input that I think everybody should watch.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree that that's kind of how these guys get their forecasts is experience. They see a lot of things. But yeah, I remember hearing about that. It was actually brought up in Storm Track chat about that. So who knows? Apparently, well, didn't he put out a certain day, like April 14th or something like that, or was it just the last half of April?
He didn't mention a specific day. He just said that second half of April into May. So, as long as it's not April 15th, I have a big talk to give that day. I'm good for any other day. So it can go bonkers after that, and I'm good.
Hey, you know what? That's one more month of me making a bunch of hours at work, which is good. Kind of pad my chase fund, and yeah, we'll get it after that. So, I can only hope. I mean, that sounds like a good plan. That's about the thing. I remember hearing about that, and I was thinking to myself, climatologically speaking, that's sort of the beginning of the plane's actual active pattern is usually around April 20th or something like that, usually like second or third week of April. That's when the planes really start lighting up, and between then through probably mid-June are kind of the highlight of the southern plains. So I was like, well, he's talking about this, and it's like you could kind of say that about every year. But,
yeah, it's kind of the safe bet. Oh, I think tornadoes will pick up late April. Okay, well, statistically they always do. So, but he throws in a lot of meteorology and pattern recognition there, and he's a big fan of analogs, and so am I. More so than oscillations, I'm a big fan of these analogs where they compare patterns of the past to what's coming down the future, and then you can look at the severe weather reports for those days. I remember, the SIPS analogs for November 17th. 2013, and the days up, the number one hit for every day was November 10th, 2002, which was the Van Wert Day, big outbreak across Ohio, Kentucky, and all that. So, I'm a big fan of those analogs. Pattern recognition is a big thing. So, when a forecaster who's been around so long says, "Oh, I've seen this type of pattern before, and this is what's happened," I tend to put some weight into that. So. That's kind of what I've been doing lately is, the pattern I see now is patterns that I've seen in other slow years that I've personally gone through, like 2009. So right now I'm not optimistic I'll be chasing anytime in the next couple of weeks, even though there is a weak, sad, pathetic attempt at a setup next week. But, that looks like a marginal day for the local boys just to get some penny-sized hail. I don't think I'm going to be biting on that one the way it looks now, but,
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned analogs because I know Jeff talked about this after he posted that big link that big discussion about the CPW El Nino. Someone asked, well, do you have any analogs for this sort of pattern? And he said check the early 90s, specifically 1990 to 91. And, of course, if anyone knows anything about 91, that was like one of the holy grails of storm chasing.
I'm reading what Shane is saying in chat.
Oh my God, Shane! I wish you're on the show because I bet he's got some great stuff to say. But so if that's true, if 1991 are true, then that's gonna be awesome. Of course, 1990 had the big early March day, March 13th, 1990 was a big setup. So I'm waiting for that day. Once I see that kind of setup come up again, which I remember we did the setup analysis on one of the beta shows, we talked about that day, and it was a very peculiar setup, and it wasn't necessarily a high moisture day for an early season. I think dew points were struggling to even touch the 60s. So if we have another day like that, then I'm gonna believe that that's what's gonna happen. So, oh, okay, I see what's going on in chat.
Yeah, it's getting heated in there. That's funny. I'm trying to watch that and stay focused here.
Oh man,
That's what
boy,
happens.
I should just screen share the chat because that's more entertaining than this stupid show.
Yeah, that's true. I got nothing interesting to say.
Oh man. All right. Well, hey, if you guys want a good time, go jump in the Storm Shack chat. They're having a really swell time in there.
Well, they're debating about our topics, which is pretty good. We got them fired up with the oscillation talk. So
Yeah, yep,
this stuff does
exactly.
trickle down.
I guess that was a hot button topic, and I didn't even know about it. Like,
Yeah.
apparently, there's got to be some people like that have like their oscillation, like it's like a big, board on their wall, and once the ticker goes down to like positive PDW and weak El Nino, it's just like all of a sudden everything lines up, and they're like worshiping the wall and sitting there praying to whatever to, I don't know. I'm sure that happens, but oh well. Uh, all I can say is you probably made a mistake trying to argue with Shane.
Yep.
So that's right. They'll learn eventually. All right. Well, while they're battling it out over there, let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about our best March setups. It is March. It's usually a time when everyone does start chasing, and every now and then, like every few years, you get a good setup. And recently, I guess let's see, last year there really wasn't a good March setup. What was the last good March setup? I guess 2012. There was March 2nd and then March 18th.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
what rings off the top of my head.
so exactly. I guess I have probably better experiences with March than you guys. I guess from what you guys told me. So I'll let you guys go first. Dan, do you have any fond memories of chasing in March?
No, my only two March memories. Well, I've been on several March chases, but the two that come to mind is March 23, 2012, which was a cold core setup down here in southern Illinois that produced tornadoes from around Carbondale all the way up through Mount Vernon. I think there was an F2 just east of Mount Vernon. And where was I? I was stuck at work. I couldn't leave. So I missed that one. It was just about 45 minutes to my east. So another example of those Midwest days that can pop up, and if you're not ready, they'll get you. And of course, March 2nd, I just had surgery, so I was kind of out of it a little bit and not on top of my game, and jumped on the first storm I saw, and they all just outran me from that point. And I went home at, I think, 4 o'clock. I started heading home, and I was already behind the cold front. So March has not gone very well for me here yet, but that could change.
Yeah, you never know. That could always change sometime down the line. I mean, something at the end of the month, you never know. Adam, I know you've gone on a couple of chases in March. What are your experiences? I know you said you've seen a couple tornadoes, but nothing worthy of showing us on the show. So
Yeah, it's sort of ironic. We're all so gung ho to get going out there chasing in March. I've never actually had a really good March chase. I guess if we had to use best March chase by default would be March 2nd, 2012, because we did see a couple tornadoes in Kentucky, nonetheless, which is kind of a unique state to see tornadoes in. So I guess that would be my best March chase today. We missed the Henryville storm by only a few minutes because we got caught in a traffic jam and some other unfortunate setbacks that day that we just missed that tornado, which was kind of a bummer because my forecast and my plan from even the night before was to get right in that spot, and just things that day kind of set us back. And even that the tornadoes we did see that day were kind of through the trees, So the only way I'm able to prove that I saw them was posting video screen captures of glimpses that we got of it in between the trees. But I've had a handful of March chases. There was the Creston, Iowa Tornado Day back in March, I believe, 22nd, 2011. Again, missed the Creston tornado, which was the highlight of that event, but got on another brief tornado on a different storm to the north, which I saw the tornado in my rearview mirror, wrote it off in my mind as a scud tag. It looked kind of pointy and raggedy. I was like, it's just a swirling scud tag teasy thingy. But turns out John Davies was right behind me, and he did film it touching the ground as a tornado. So, okay, all right, I guess it counts, even though I myself didn't film it. So as far as tornado scores in March go, that's about it for me. But like I said, there's been good March days that I just haven't been out on. I know March 18th, which I think you're going to mention, in Oklahoma was a good one for a lot of people. We just had the anniversary of the 6-state supercell, big high risk in Illinois, Missouri. That was a big March day. So I've had some good hail and structure days in March too. You don't have to wait till late May and June to get these good structured storms, and just to go out there and have a good fun hail day. I've had plenty of those in March. I believe it was 2013 actually, or maybe it was 2012. But we had a couple March chase days in central Kansas where we got into some golf ball hail, had some core punching, and just being out there chasing. It's great just to be out there chasing. You don't need to have a tornado to have a good chase. So that's why I like to get out in March. And also in March, the chaser crowds are down because you don't have the tours aren't out yet, the chase cationers aren't out yet. So you have more opportunities for unique catches and storms to yourself in March. That's why I like these early season setups, and that's kind of why I'm sad when we get a year where they don't happen. The last 3 years, I think, have all not had a March chase for me, which is actually the exception, not the rule. Usually I get out there once or twice in March. Kind of a nice way to warm up, dust the gear off, keep the skills sharp type of thing. But I don't really have anything good from March to show on the show. If you want to watch a brief video of a couple glimpse tornadoes in between the trees, that's about all I can show. So, but again, that just motivates me to actually get something good. I need a good March tornado, and I would love an opportunity to go out and get one.
Yeah, I mean, I love having March tornadoes. I'm glad I do have some under my belt. But that's exactly why I look forward to March days, is because the crowds are a lot smaller. You don't have the chase cationers. You don't have the guys that come out during May and June, whatever. That's why I love chasing in March and April too. April's kind of the same way, although there's more people usually coming out in April. But I have a couple of good days, and both of them were actually in 2012. And it's funny, I know a lot of people hate 2012, but it's actually my second best year in my career. I think my final tornado count that year was like near 20, so that was an amazing year for me. So real quick, I won't make it. I won't make this too long, but we'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and show some of my stuff. This is March 18th, like you were saying. Adam was a big, well, not big, but it was a little tornado outbreak sort of deal. Mostly just one supercell, cyclic supercell going across southwest Oklahoma. And it's funny because I almost ruined that day. This was actually what the storms or not storms, but this is what it looked like in my target. I actually targeted out by Pampa, Texas, and that was kind of on a dryline bulge, so I kind of figured that was the place to be. But as you can see from this picture, nothing really happened. We ended up bailing south on the storm. There's Brady Kendrick holding some big hail. This was the same storm that dropped all those tornadoes near Mangum and Willow. We kind of approached it from the backside, so all we got to see was the big menacing mezzo. This is a video grab from that tornado near Mangum, and this was actually a pretty large tornado that not many people actually saw. I believe they were just kind of out of position for it. But you can see the edges of that big tornado in there. This was a satellite that was twisting around it at the same time. This is our view looking due north. You can see the left edge of the tornado here, kind of obscured by the hail and RFD, and the little satellite over here. And then after that was all said and done, you had the Willow, Oklahoma tornado, which was probably lasted a minute maybe. And then further on, that storm produced that nice elephant trunk tornado. Um, so I got that. That was probably my best tornado day for chasing in terms of 2012. I did have several other days in 2012 that produced tornadoes, but nothing as photogenic as that day was. My other chase day, and this may have been the day you were talking about, Adam, was maybe March 29, 2012. It was kind of a cold front day, and this was like a slow-moving cold front that extended from Oklahoma, like northwest Oklahoma, all the way through like central Kansas or whatnot. But it produced some pretty big hail, and this was actually um, a big hailer in northwest Oklahoma. And what's really interesting is I've never really had a storm like this where it was 3 in the morning and that thing was still getting baseball size hail reports in Oklahoma. Um, but I think this is kind of when I learned that chasing storms on the cold front isn't such a bad thing. Mostly because I'll skip ahead here. Um, in fact, I really didn't. We really didn't get very much good footage at night. Here's some of the big hail we found though. This was like at midnight when we found these hailstones. So, um, yeah, you chase those storms that kind of ride a cold front, and they get that extra uh, enhancement of cold, I guess, cold air, so the hail doesn't melt as quickly. And usually these cold front storms produce pretty monstrous hail, which this one did.
Well,
So,
yeah, your freezing line is typically lower in March, so that definitely
that-
helps. You can get bigger hail out of a lower top storm than you normally would later in the year.
exactly. So, yeah, those were a couple of cases where March was actually pretty well with me and worked pretty well for me. Didn't really get too many tornadoes in March except for March 18th. But you don't always have to have a big hailstorm to make a good chase day. So is man, I was gonna let's say, is the chat still blowing up over there? I'm not even paying attention, but oh well. All right. Well, so we're hoping for the best, guys. We're hoping that something comes up down the line. Maybe late March will produce a good setup. I don't know. Um, I know it's probably not going to be this week, although there's a couple of days I'm watching this week. Those surprise days where you get some moisture up on the cap rock and some sort of energy coming over the area. So those are the kind of days I look forward to because those are those surprise mesoscale accident days. Um,
The setup we had a couple days ago here down in Memphis, Tennessee, I think it was Thursday, there was a surface low down there, very weak surface low, but it was just off the back of the winds and the low levels. And they hit 60-degree dew points, and basically the limiting factor was cloud cover was limiting the ability. But if there had been some breaks in the cloud cover, it may have been a decent play. All you need is a little short wave to come through and overcome this persistent East Coast troughing, and you can get a little surprise day that pops up out of nowhere. And a lot of times in the Midwest, the SPC chasers aren't going to catch these things because the SPC a lot of times won't have these outlook for tornadoes, at least in the early outlooks, and in the afternoon when it starts coming together, they'll add it. But
I was watching that system too, Dan. That northward moving low that kind of came up there in the southern Illinois. Some of those GFS and NAM runs were showing quite the precip bullseyes there, and I was kind of watching that. If we could get a little bit of heating under there, those little tight, compact, almost lows, even though it wasn't, but that was such a tightly compact low that the shear on those things really get those low top storms going. So I was watching that too, but it ended up doing nothing. But I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah, those are the kind of days you look forward to also because, just like Dan said, they're not going to pick it up in the early outlooks. They'll pick it up maybe later on. But, yeah, that I remember that setup. It looked really good. I was actually almost like not even, well, I wasn't even considering. But I was looking at that down in Mississippi, and like I think there's these little herds of energy coming through over that area, And hopefully this cold front doesn't scour the moisture out too quickly, but you never know. There could be a little setup sneaking up on you, maybe the morning of, just depending on what the cold front will do and whatnot. So,
Well, we'll have to
um,
watch. We'll have to watch the middle of next week. That setup's been shown up for a few days now. It's not a very good one, but it doesn't take much for it to change in a favorable way. So I guess it's something to watch. Probably the most something we've had all year. I have very low confidence in it right now, but anything can change. After that, things look even worse. So it's it's kind of
yeah,
take that, and we're gonna go back to sleep for a while. If you just want to get out there out of desperation, just to play around with some hail and lightning, maybe test your camera, make sure it still works, things like that. That's about all those types of days are good for. I don't mind one of those every now and then.
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of why I'm hoping that there's at least somewhat of a local play coming up like Wednesday, so I can
Mm-hmm.
test out the new camera and the new lens to make sure it's exactly what I need. So we'll see what happens. But for now, we're just kind of taking it day by day, I guess. I'm just enjoying the warm weather. That's pretty much all I really care about right now. I'm tired of cold air. So, all right. Well, before we sign off for the night, there's some discussion about what's going to happen with the show. Um, Obviously, this show has not been very consistent the last couple months. There's a few factors for that. Just life stuff, as well as just being real busy with different things. Um, I know James probably doesn't want me to mention this, but the show was starting to sort of impede on his personal life and personal relationships. So I basically told him, like, look, man, you don't have to sacrifice your relationships or whatnot for this show. It's definitely not even worth fighting over it. It shouldn't even be an issue. So James might be less in on the show as normal. He might be kind of in and out, which is fine. I mean, we could just kind of mix it up with different guests, no problem. And then another thing I've been kicking around is the fact that this show really hasn't been consistent, and maybe if we change that, that would actually benefit the show. But the best way I'm going to be able to do that is to probably get a different host and train them on how to use Hangouts and make sure they got the stuff for the stream. Um, that might mean getting a separate email because right now this whole podcast is running off of my personal email, so I wouldn't want that to happen. But um, yeah, that's kind of floating in my head. I was thinking about doing it, and especially when it comes to the actual chase season, we're really not going to be consistent at all. I mean, if there's a chase on Sunday, you don't expect a show because I'm not probably going to be here. Unless it's set up really far away and I don't want to chase it, then maybe I'll be on and talking about the setup and whatnot. But um, that's why I'm thinking about getting a different host to kind of come on and be able to do the show every now and then. Not a permanent host, not an alternating host, but just fill in whenever I can't or fill in whenever James can't. Of course, y'all all know James has had kind of some issues with internet at OU, which I don't. I guess that happens, and he's also had computer problems. So, um, but definitely, I'll keep everybody informed via Twitter and Facebook and Stormtrack if that happens. Um, I really haven't been able to talk to anybody about actually doing that. I think I talked to Steve Miller a little bit, see if he wanted to do it. He really hasn't given me a response, so that's fine. I mean, I don't expect Steve to do that too because he's busy doing the website. So, but we'll see. If you guys have any suggestions on who might be a good host, let me know. You can just PM me on Stormtrack. You can hit me up on Twitter or Facebook. Even though I really don't run those handles, I can definitely get the information sent to me. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. I just need to be able to do the show constantly. I know a lot of people watch the show. We have a lot of regulars, and I need to be at least be able to put something on for them. And that may not necessarily mean that I'm on every episode, but for the times where I'm out and or can't do the show, then they can definitely take it. So, also next week, if we're doing the show, keep an eye out for different scenery in the room. I'm probably going to move my entire setup upstairs. Hopefully, we'll get rid of this stupid. I know, I have an echo because I am in a ginormous room. I mean, I'm basically sitting in an 1,100 square foot room right now. So, and I got no soundproofing, so that's why I have this like echoey sound on my microphone. I'm sure you can hear my computer going crazy over there with the fans because Google's such a power-hungry program. Um, but yeah, I think I'll probably take it upstairs. Have a little. I'll put some stuff on the wall so at least it doesn't look like I'm doing the show in a dungeon and doesn't sound like it at least. But so yeah, that's kind of the future for the show. Um, Not really sure what's going on next week. I am going to try to get some different guests, some guys that haven't been on. I know I have a couple of guys that are kind of waiting for me to invite them onto a show because they're kind of busy, but at the same time they say, well, after this date I'll be available. So we'll kind of reach out to them, see if they want to be a part of the show. A setup analysis show will probably make its comeback next week. I know a lot of people keep asking me about it, and it's really not that hard to do. I just kind of need someone. I need someone that knows exactly what they're talking about when it comes to setups. So that's why James was really good because he kind of understood all the lingo. I'm not saying I don't, but I'm gonna get stuff wrong if I do that setup analysis on my own. Um, so if anyone wants to volunteer for that as well, we can definitely put you in a rotation for setup analysis, and we'll definitely be taking suggestions for our next setup analysis show. Just whatever you guys want to do. I'm going to give the audience two options on what they want. We could either do the way we've been doing it, which is an upslope northern plain, southern plain setup, or we can do an entire system setup, basically a multi-day outbreak. We can definitely go over that. Kind of like the whole April 24th through 27th of 2011 would be a good example of multi-day setups with one system. Whichever one you guys prefer, we'll probably do majority rules on that.
You
So
could change it up.
well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Just kind of change it up, put a different spin on it. Well, we might actually just go ahead and do that next episode is the multi-day setup, and if that works out well, then we'll keep doing it. We'll do another one, or if you guys want to alternate, we'll just do that too. So
It'd be nice if we had upcoming setup analysis to talk about. Like, hey, there's a big system next week we're all watching. Let's talk about it. Yeah, not so much yet.
yeah, and see that's another thing I was thinking of was, do we want to make setup analysis for current events too, or just past events, or do we want to reserve the show, like the actual Ghost Train show, for that? I mean, kind of talking about future setups. So, I'm not sure. Might do one or the other. I mean, we'll kind of, since this is kind of an early on show, like we're not very far into the series. We'll kind of play around with different ideas, I guess, and just see what sticks. Um, I guess we'll just kind of do it that way. But do you guys have anything to add? Do you guys got any suggestions for the show?
Nothing. As far as the host goes, just find someone who wants to do it and be a regular. Understand it's a small commitment, not a huge commitment, but for some people, just a small commitment is even too much to ask. So they just have to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not bashing on James.
No, me neither.
He's going to OU. He's doing the school thing. I mean, that's a big thing going on in his life, and I mean, I don't have to worry about doing homework every night or having to appease to anybody else but myself right now. So, I mean, for me, it's not such a big deal. But and like I proved in this episode, this whole episode was to kind of prove that a co-host isn't a necessity, but it is a benefit. Especially someone that you have a good vibe with, you can kind of bounce things off each other. So, but all right. Well, do you guys have anything to add? Anything for any of the discussions we had? Nothing, Dan.
We covered it.
We covered it. Is there anything we should know about Storm Track? Anything in the future? Or any call for help or anything like that?
I think we covered everything earlier. We we started a new form for submitting some of the information for the weather library. So sorry, there's a train about half a block.
I was wondering what that was.
But yeah, we've got this new form that hopefully make it a little easier to submit some things to the weather library. The Who's Who form is all set up that way, so it's a little easier to send your stuff in.
Yeah, I submitted one of those, I guess, the other night. Well, I submitted one last night, and I submitted one this morning. Kind of, it's really easy. I mean, basically what you do is you're providing a Chase account for a certain day. You send it in, and Dan will kind of look at it, and if we get enough reports on one day, then it'll become a page on the weather library. So it's a pretty simple form to fill out. It does take, if you want to make it complete like I did, which included radar grabs and stuff, which meant I had to go to NCDC, pull up or order a day, and then do the WCT thing and get some radar images. That's what I did this morning. It takes a little bit of time, but for the most part, it's pretty much straightforward and easy to do. So, but yeah, Steve made that available last night. The Stone Chasing Event Archive, as well as the Who's Who of Chasing. It's now an easy submission form. You just kind of answer the question as you go, and I mean that's it. It's pretty easy. So, all right. So that's. Oh, and one thing we need to mention, and I don't know if everyone knows this or not about the site, but Steve has added radar scope to StormTrack, and I think that's kind of cool. Now we have another source of radar. We could definitely pull it up when we're doing like current events. And the cool thing about that radar scope, which I wish Steve would do on the regular radar scope, because I know you're watching, Steve, is to put roads and stuff on radar scope. So basically, I'd like to have the map overlay of Pickle 3 on radar scope's data and features. That'd be like the best product ever right there. So, Adam, you got anything to add, sir?
Nothing positive at the moment.
Well, if you got something negative, I don't care. You can say
No,
it.
not really anything negative, but beating the same dead horse. It's a slow season. I don't see it picking up anytime soon. So use this downtime to fine tune your setups and just make sure that you're ready for when it decides to get going. And don't always look for the obvious setup. You got to be more. If you want to see tornadoes, and Shane brilliantly said this on his last show, that climatology is so low on the list of things that affect whether or not you're going to see tornadoes, that it almost doesn't even matter, because they're going to happen somewhere. If you want to see tornadoes, you just have to make sure that your life is structured to be able to go out there and get them. Think outside the box and be willing to stretch the boundaries a little bit, and you'll see tornadoes. That's all there is to it. They're going to happen. They're going to be somewhere. There's going to be beautiful photos and videos coming out of the country this year. You can't wait for them to come to you. It's called chasing for a reason. Anyone who sits there in their backyard and waits for that perfect setup, you're going to be waiting a long time no matter where you live. So you just have to adjust your life, and if it means that much to you, find a way to get out there and see them.
Yep. Unless you live in Moore, then it's going to be about once every 5 years.
Everybody, some of my closest friends who've moved to Norman lately, it doesn't seem to have benefited them that much. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And how many times has Norman been hit by a tornado, like on a big chase day? And yet those people that live in Norman are usually away from Norman because they're chasing the main target. So
yeah, it happens to me too. I'll leave Chicago and hey, there'll be some random tornado close to home. Happens to us all.
That's why I really don't want to move from this area, because we get those little surprise days, and I'm glad that I'm here to actually be able to chase them in this area.
Same here. That's exactly the reason I don't want to move either. I don't think it would better my chasing at all, not being in Chicago. I'm able to get out there to the plains for all their big days. I get the days back here that not many people get. You're going to miss a random 5% day in Oklahoma, Illinois, Montana. No matter where you live, you're going to miss those days. So to me, it doesn't matter. I spent more time structuring my life to be able to go get them anywhere rather than just, I'm going to plop myself in the middle of Tornado Alley so it's quote unquote easier for me to chase. Nah, I don't see moving there as benefiting me. Kind of way off topic. That's a whole other show.
Yep.
So I
Mhm.
won't go into it.
And I was just gonna say, you move yourself in the middle of Tornado Alley, and you run the risk of not being able to come home because your home may not even be there.
Yeah. All you're
Um,
doing is increasing your chance of becoming a victim.
Pretty much. And I know I don't know if we actually talked about this on the show or in the chat room, but I would actually prefer to live, east of the alley because then you kind of chase the systems back home. Um, and it's funny, and I know we'll talk about this on some other show, but someone posted a picture of, I think, tornado reports over the last, I don't know, probably 50, 60 years, and there was pretty much a pretty big void in central Missouri, and there was some interesting discussion on why that is, and, you know, you think about it, and maybe that is a pretty good area to live in just because it's you don't really get too many big tornadoes going through central Missouri, usually on the edges of Missouri, but that's another episode. We'll talk about that another night, but um, yeah, I mean, you want to move to Norman and then or anywhere away, hours and hours away, and it doesn't change your results over the years. You still have to go out and chase. So I guess all it
Still
really
got to
does, like
work.
you said, yeah, you still have to work. You still got to work for it.
Still
All it
giving me
really does is
setups.
you get to chase those smaller percentage days, I guess, and you get to cut down your travel time. But it's funny because I think we're
Dan,
just gonna get to that point where we can
Dan
see
knows
these
better
things.
than anyone. You get those over here too.
Yeah, exactly, I think we're getting to that point where the technology of forecasting is going to be to the point where we could see these setups, and we kind of already do. We can kind of see these things happening 3, 4 days out. So it doesn't matter if you're within 3 to 4 days drive of the plains. You could still have a successful year. You're going to be putting a lot of miles on your car and spending a lot on gas and hotels, but you know it still works. It can still work for you.
Nice thing about living here is it's pretty good insurance about having a 0 tornado year. You know you're going to see something, even if I don't chase anywhere, I'll see something within 2 hours of home every year.
Yeah, I mean, St. Louis is, I don't know how, it's not that many, it's less than half a day's drive to get to Kansas and Nebraska, right?
Oh
I could
yeah.
about 6 in the morning and make just about any target in the plains, except for maybe Colorado or western Nebraska.
Yeah, so, and I mean, those setups out there are usually the day of, so it's really hard to forecast those days anyway, so. All right, well, Adam, anything else?
That's all I got for now. I can babble on forever, but topics at hand, that's it.
All right, guys, well, go on. Hope you guys join up on Storm Track. It's a really good site. We're really working hard on it and making it the one-stop shop for all storm chasing. Um, Definitely hit up the Chaser chat. It's always a fun time in there. I don't know if stuff's firing up again. I see Shane's back in the chat room, so he might be going at it again. So.
That's who your other host needs to be. It needs to be Shane. But I know he's got his own
Yeah,
thing, which I'm a huge fan of.
yeah. Well, and Steve Miller's in there now too, so I think things are going to calm down, unfortunately.
I gotta distract Steve for a little bit so we can have some fun.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, join up the site, guys. It's a really cool site, and we don't care if you're just starting out as a chaser, if you've been chasing for 50 years. I mean, everyone's kind of got their place in this website. So, um, I guess we'll be keeping everybody in touch on the future of the show, like I said, and we'll be talking about whatever setup analysis we decide to do, and keep an eye on the Twitter and Facebook pages for any further news. I got the Twitter handle right there underneath my name. The Facebook page is facebook.com/TGT show, no underscore. So that's kind of easy to remember. I was trying to fit it on this stupid thing, but it didn't want to fit on the stupid tagline, so whatever. But all right, well, Dan, we can see Dan at stormhighway.com. Is that right?
That's right. Or Storm
And,
Track.
or Storm Track, of course. So you can find Adam at aerostorms.com. And, of course, Adam is not just the noob, but he is the king of noobs. Just remember, that is your king right there, newbies. So, you can find me at the txwxchaser.smugmug.com. That's kind of my photo gallery / chaser summary gallery. And, of course, Storm Track. I'm there all the time, too. So, I hope you guys enjoy the show. I know it's a bit of a shorter show than normal. Deal with it. But we will see you guys next week, and hope you guys had a good time. Peace out.